Welcome to Be an Encourager podcast, where real stories of transformation, faith, and redemption come to life. I'm your host, Claribel Coreano. Today, I am absolutely thrilled to welcome two incredible women to Be an Encourager podcast, Stephanie Jones and Victoria Rains. I had the absolute pleasure of being a guest on their powerful podcast. I can even imagine just 2 weeks ago. And now I have the honor of turning the mic around to interview them. Stephanie and Victoria have been best friends since kindergarten, a rare and beautiful bond that has only grown stronger over the years. They literally grew up across the street from each other and even lived together as young adults. From birthdays to graduation to marriage and motherhood, their lives have been lightly woven together, but their friendship was tested and deepened in ways they never anticipated. Victoria's daughter survived a traumatic brain injury, and Stephanie's son overcame a battle with leukemia. These deeply personal and painful journeys and strengthened their friendship in profound ways, building a connection rooted in faith, resilience, and unwavering support. Today, as co-hosts of I Can Even Imagine, Stephanie and Victoria use their voices to encourage other moms who have walked through heartbreak and hardship. Their podcast is a space of honesty, hope, and healing, and so is their friendship. I can't wait for you to hear from them both. Get ready to be inspired and uplifted. Welcome to Be an Encourager podcast. So let's get ready for an enriching and encouraging conversation. Let's dive in. Again, we welcome Stephanie and Victoria to Be an Encourager podcast. Today is Rooted Together, Faith, Friendship, and the Storms We Survive. This is a heartfelt conversation between two friends who weathered heartbreak, held on to hope, and found strength in faith. So I'm going to start by sharing just a little bit of facts just to get the people, thinking about everything that we're going to be talking about. So nearly 1 in 3 families of children with critical illness experience symptoms of PTSD, making spiritual and emotional anchors vital for survival. You both walk through unimaginable trials, Victoria with your daughter, traumatic brain injury, and Stephanie with your son, leukemia trial. What helped you both stay grounded when the ground beneath you felt like it was crumbling?
Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. I think it was my support system and the people around me that helped me stay grounded, because when you're in a situation where it's a completely sudden situation, something you were not expecting, and now you're thrust into this world of, ICU, doctors, daughter in a coma and intubated, you don't know what to do. And it's the people who are in my circle. Stephanie was there for me, keeping you, they're your anchor in that moment when the storm is raging around you. And that's what kept me grounded, at least in the initial beginning and really through the whole thing.
And how about you, Stephanie?
Yeah, the same thing, support system, going a little bit further, family, especially of course, Victoria, she's pretty much family to me. We've been best friends since we were 5 years old. She started like a meal train for our family. We had a GoFundMe going. I did a meal train also for her.
Yeah, GoFundMe for my family too.
Those little things, they were so huge. They were so impactful. But I had, even as like Victoria and my mom coming into the house and sanitizing everything, because here my son had a cancer diagnosis, and we were stressing about, oh my gosh, now they're going to wipe out his immune system with chemotherapy. He's going to be susceptible to anything and everything, so we kind of became like a little hyper vigilant in keeping things clean. And I have a best friend who owns a cleaning business.
Yep.
So, she came in with family, and they helped clean everything. But it was just like small acts of kindness like that just keeps your faith in humanity and keeps you grounded. We even had like strangers send us a card with just an example. I had a stranger that remained anonymous that sent us a card with $1,000 in it. Just small acts of kindness like that, that put a smile on your face when you least expect it, is something that really keeps you going.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like you both were there for each other and also you had a good support system, with the community, and you were able to get through this very difficult situation. I cannot imagine, how frustrating, difficult it is. And you had each other. That's so important. A friendship like yours is rooted, in decades of their life, and which is very rare. How did your bond help you endure the darkest seasons? And what role did your faith play in holding that bond together?
I think that because we've known each other so long, I don't really have a lot of memories without her in my life. So truly, it's like having a sister. And it's almost like there's not even, I can't even say what has kept us together because it's almost like it's not even a question. She's
Right.
just going to be there. There's nothing that was ever shaky enough in our life to ruin the foundation that we've started. She's just here and will always be here. And I hope that doesn't sound like I take her for granted. It's just, she's just a structure in my life that I appreciate so deeply.
Don't make me cry, bro.
Oh, honey. That I don't think that anything could break us apart. I mean, we had a little tiff this morning and we saw each other and we're just nothing. It's fine.
We're like a married couple. Really.
Yeah.
It sounds like sisters.
She just is.
Yeah.
There's, she just is. And I love her.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, having your best friend there to keep you grounded in times like that is just, it's so special. And we deal with a lot of our stuff through humor.
Yes.
And she's really good at finding the little things that you can laugh at when you're in a terrible situation. And I'm so grateful to have somebody like that in my life, because truthfully, I think she's one of the only people like that in my life. I'm very much more of like a realist, and I grew up in a family household that was everything's very negative. It's always focusing on, the what ifs and the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, and life didn't turn out the way I wanted it to be. It's very negative. And so to have somebody there to be like, no, it's going to be okay. We're going to be okay. And faith is very important too. I had thankfully a very wonderful church community who banded together. And I mean, we started a whole kind of a campaign, if you will, for my son, that was all about prayer. And so like we felt that prayer, we leaned on that a lot, because when you're thrust into situations like that, some days that's all you can do. You let the tears fall, you sit in your emotions, and you just pray. And somehow you find the energy after all that's done to keep going.
Thank you for sharing that. And this prayer is so important. Thank you for also elaborating on that. So, according to the American Psychological Association, spiritual practices and faith significantly and emotional resilience during prolonged trauma. So, there must have been moments where hope seemed distant. Can you share a time when you were trusting God and you felt that it was very hard and you found, a way back to Him? Because I know, when you're going through trials and difficult challenges, sometimes you feel like God is not there.
Right. I can remember a particular time. There's a woman in my life who was very pivotal. Also, that was a part of my church. Who she's actually like a counselor at our church. That's her ministry. And she specializes in like family relationships, with husbands and wives and grief and things like that. But she was a friend first, and she's a bit older, so I've always kind of looked up to her and as a bit of a mentor. And she knew that I struggled with, like I said, I grew up in a family that was very negative, and they focus on like the what ifs and shoulda, coulda, wouldas and things like that. So I was home with a newborn and a 2-year-old when my son was going through his treatment. So my husband was the one that always took my son, our oldest, to all of the doctor's appointments. And I still to this day, I carry a lot of guilt that I couldn't be there for my son. You know, mama should have been by his side and holding his hand and going through that with him. But I had two little ones at home that needed me. My youngest was born 2 weeks after he was diagnosed. You know, so I'm full-time breastfeeding, in the motherhood stuff. And every time that they would go to the hospital, my brain would everything would spiral because I'm thinking, what if he doesn't come out of anesthesia? What if there's very, very strong drugs that they give these kids that have such horrible side effects that they have to be monitored and they have to be on an IV the entire time to flush it out because it is so incredibly toxic. And there are side effects pages long for these drugs. And I'm like, what if he has a reaction? You know, they've warned us about this medication. You know, what if? And I had expressed this concern because I would literally be pacing the house, just crying, holding my baby. Postpartum hormones are raging. Things, you know, are already tough because I have a newborn and a 2-year-old. And so I had expressed these fears to my friend that was the mentor at the church. And she was like, you just need to like scream it out to God. Just scream it out. And I was driving in the car one day and I just like I was praying, but I was literally screaming to God to please protect my son, get him through this. I was like telling the enemy that you're not allowed in my family, you're not allowed in my head. Like you need to go away. You have no power over me, you have no power over my son, and we're not going to have anything to do with you in Jesus name, you know. And I screamed out this prayer and I honestly like that was one of those pivotal moments to me that made me realize how powerful prayer was because and prayer is just because I felt like this incredible weight was lifted off of me and I had clarity. I don't even know when this was in our journey, but I that specific day was really powerful for me.
It sounds like it was, very challenging, during that stage because you had to face two different things. You had to face being there for your son and being present, but you were present during the prayer. Maybe God needed you to be that instrument, And like you said, prayer is, you know, very effective. And you had people praying for him, and you were praying as a mother, and God hears the prayers of a mother. So that understands. I have to give it to both of you. Have been doing an amazing journey. How about you, Victoria?
I don't have anything as specific as Stephanie's example. That was really powerful. Mine, for me, I had three other kids at home and I'm in the hospital with my daughter. I was there with her every single day, slept on the couch in the hospital for 2 straight months and in two different cities. And for me, I didn't have the bandwidth to cry out. I kind of gave that to other people in those moments. We had so many people praying for my daughter. I mean, my husband was on his knees every day praying for my daughter, and my mom, my mom, and prayers work. I mean, Stephanie's church, they were praying,
Oh
and
yeah.
her
I
pastor showed up at the hospital and prayed over my daughter. We had nurses and just the hospital staff coming in asking to pray over my daughter. It was just super powerful. And in those moments, I could just give it to them. I didn't feel adequate or something at the time mentally to
mhm.
take that part of it on. And it's not that I didn't pray for her, but it was more in the quiet moments at night when I'm sleeping on the couch that I would do my praying, but the more outward prayers that everybody kind of sees, I suppose, the group efforts, I gave that to everybody else and it worked. It worked. Her healing has been so miraculous. It's amazing. That's all I can say. It's miraculous.
Thank
Mhm.
you both for sharing your story. It's so important for the listeners to hear because there might be someone that may be going through this right now with their children. So these are both very inspirational. So hearing personal stories of survival increases empathy and hope. And for trauma survivors, by reminding them that they're not alone on this. You both now pour into others through your podcast. What did you need to hear during your hardest moment, and how do you know to speak those words now to the in women's lives that are going through something similar as you both went through?
I don't think I necessarily needed to hear something. What I feel like I needed in my darkest moments was somebody to just simply be there. I had some of my customers came to the hospital and just brought me lunch and sat with me. One of them, she didn't say anything. She just sat there with me and ate lunch with me just to be present and just kind of,
Hold space.
yeah, hold space for me to just laugh or talk and not talk about anything that I'm dealing with right now. Let's talk about something else. And I get through a lot of my stuff through humor. I have to find something, and not humor of the situation, just humor in general. Tell me a funny story, get my mind off of it, because that's what it, keeps me going. And that's what I had. My employees would come to the hospital and sit with me, or Stephanie would be there and pick me up at midnight when I needed her to, whatever it was, just um, people just being present.
Mm-hmm.
That's really all. I didn't really need to hear anything. I think a lot of it, I got a lot of platitudes, and it was frustrating. A lot of that's why we named our podcast "I Can't Even Imagine," because that's what we heard all the time, both of us.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even imagine. You're so strong, and I can't imagine it either. But it's happening. It is what it is, and I don't think I needed to hear anything in those moments. I think I just needed just somebody to be there and just sit there, talk about something else.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, it's a little bit different. For me, I was really seeking people that understood what the journey was like and could kind of give me an idea of what was going to happen next. One of the very, first people that I connected with, it was another mom who had a son going through the same journey. We became friends with that family. Unfortunately, we did have to go through the process of seeing them lose their son, and that was really difficult. But having a community of people that know what you're going through and have to face the same challenges with the medications and the side effects and stuff like that, who can kind of let you know, hey, this is what to expect. That really helped me prepare, because I was also doing work on the side to get my son's body ready to go through stuff like that. Because the doctors in the hospital, they're going to tell you, the black and white. This is what's going to happen. This is what, but they really don't get into like the nitty gritty of how your child could possibly react. And they're obviously not going to tell you, oh, it looks like they're doing great. They're going to survive. They're not going to say stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because they, of course they can't. And so, just to know people who had children who made it to the other side and who came out, healthy and thriving. And like that was like, okay, well, if they were diagnosed with this, and some of them were diagnosed with worse, in some people's eyes, I mean, all cancer is horrible, but some of them had, even harder diagnoses, seeing other kids who had even harder diagnoses and then seeing their survival, that was like, that was the glimmer of hope that I would have to just hold on to, because I knew I trusted God and I could give it to God, but I wanted something tangible. And that was tangible to me. So,
And in my situation, there isn't really a big community for children with TBIs. Or, I mean, there is a community of people with traumatic brain injuries, but the thing is, every traumatic brain injury is completely different.
yeah.
There's not really a set of people, a community, a group, a resource that you can tap into like, this is what you should expect, or that's just not, at least I haven't found something like that. So, the cancer journey, there's a whole community of people that are there for you and that can help you in that and kind of give you a roadmap.
Yeah. And there's
I
a lot of foundations out there
Mhm.
too, that we connected with and, we reached out to that helped us, pay our bills and sent us on like little trips and stuff like that just to, keep us together as a family and honestly keep our mind off of the hospital stuff.
Yeah.
That was a blessing.
Well, thank you both for sharing your two different stories. And although it was like very challenging, but you mentioned, Victoria, that having people being there present, listening, being that supportive, Stephanie, sorry, that having someone to guide you with the process of seeing individuals who have gone through it have made it, a little bit easier for you to process, and having that encouragement that they can make it, because like you said, the doctors may give you, keep you, how you say, just stuck with the diagnosis and not tell you, oh, it's going to do better.
Mhm.
So you push through that with
Mhm.
having that support system in place. So that's, great that you were able to have that. Chronic adversity often leads to post-traumatic growth, where individuals develop deeper gratitude, purpose, relational strength. So pain has a way of shifting perspective. How have your definition of strength, motherhood, and healing changed the family?
Oh, that's a loaded question.
Yeah. I think that my definition of strength and motherhood didn't change during or immediately after our journey with my daughter in the hospital and through her year-long healing process. It's really changed by talking to other mothers on our podcast.
Mhm.
That is where I feel I am just blown away by the strength of mothers in general,
Mhm.
because I don't feel, when people would say to me, "Oh, you're so strong," I don't feel strong. I feel incredibly weak.
Right.
And I don't know what I'm doing. Watching other people, and I'm like, "Oh my God, she's so strong," and she probably doesn't feel it either. But it's just seeing other people and the journeys that they go through and the way that they're able to move forward and move through is so inspirational, and that just gives me so much more, I guess, hope and faith and all of the things, and just the strength of mothers. And yeah, on to you.
Echoing a lot of that. Yeah. I mean, we talk about like finding purpose in your pain.
Mm-hmm.
And really, I feel like our podcast is that for us, because it's honestly for me, because like I know I probably should, but I don't seek therapy. I don't have therapy, and I do deal with some PTSD that creeps up on me from time to time, even though it's been 8 years since all this happened to us. But this podcast is therapeutic for me.
Mm-hmm.
It is healing just to talk, just as simple as having a conversation with other mothers who have been through hard stuff. And it's like we always try to make a point to not compare hardships.
Right.
Not to say that somebody's journey was tougher than somebody else's. We all have our own version of hard. It's how do you get through it? It's what do you do to heal? And that's what's the most important part for us.
That's a very important message to incite that hope for others that they can continue healing. And what you mentioned that you listen to their stories and you question, oh my God, they went through a harder situation than I did. But that also helps you heal at the same time while you're providing them with hope and allowing them that forum for them to share their story and share the healing journey. It's also going to be helpful for both of us to continue healing. That's a great, I love the name of the podcast.
Yeah. And
It's
can I elaborate
amazing.
on that? Can I elaborate on that a little
Yes,
bit?
definitely, definitely.
So
'Cause I
when we
love
were
that title.
when we were first talking about, and you can jump in whenever. And it was her idea. All the credit goes to Victoria for the idea. Um, but we had talked about doing a podcast for a long time, and we just never really quite had clarity on it. And I was going through a really difficult day emotionally. I had some PTSD things that were coming up, and I turned to her naturally, as best friends do, and we talked about it. And she's like, "Well, now that you're telling me this, I have this idea for our podcast idea, and I want to know what you think of it." But she was really kind of hesitant because I mean, you can take over from here.
It's a tough topic.
Yeah.
Right. It's a tough topic. I mean, like, how are we going to sell this? People sharing their trauma and the horrible things that have happened to them in their life. But that wasn't the point of, I had just kept thinking about it and thinking about it. How sharing your journey and how you get through it, and how it's okay to laugh sometimes, and it's okay to cry sometimes, and it's okay to be so thankful in one moment that your kid is here and healthy, um, and you're still frustrated with them sometimes.
They're still annoying.
Yeah, right. And like
they still make you mad,
right? And like, it's all fine. You're normal for feeling these things, because for so long, you feel guilty. Your kid, they survived this crazy, horrible thing. And like, I catch myself being like, oh, she's so annoying. And then I have to check myself and like, I don't feel normal. And I feel so guilty for thinking that. But no, it's okay. Two things can be true at the same time.
Right.
I'm so happy my kid is here, and she's driving me crazy right now. So I wanted to put a highlight on not just that aspect of it, but the healing journey. How did you get from the worst day of your life to where you're able to now share it and inspire others?
Mm-hmm.
And I brought it to her, in a kind of a dark moment for her. She was really upset, and she's like, oh my God, we got to do this. Oh my God, has to be done.
That's the name of the podcast. As soon as it came out of her mouth, I was like, we're doing this. That is the name of it. Because it was like, even though our two individual stories are so incredibly different, we still had moments where we bonded over, that we understood. We understood the feelings of guilt. We understood just all these little things that kept coming up. And then that circled back to, when we tell our story, it's always people say to us, wow, I can't even imagine that you went through such a thing.
Yeah.
And so it just clicked. And
here we are.
We're doing it.
Thank you for elaborating on the title. It's great that you both have that, that define. It's like God put you both together to do this, to help others heal. So there's a message in that. It's in itself awesome. So going on to my next question, compassion fatigue is real, especially for those helping in the caregiving role, making self-care and spiritual renewal essential. As host of a podcast that brings healing through storytelling, how do you keep your own heart open and healthy while holding space for others with pain?
I mean, I've always been a people person. I've always been pretty extroverted, and I love meeting people and hearing their stories. So for me, it's just I've always just been that way. So, and you do hear a lot of dark things, but really what keeps us grounded is not staying there. We don't stay in that darkness. We talk about it, we process it, and then we focus on, how did you move forward? What does the healing process look like for you?
Right. Because typically the people that are on our podcast are not people that are in the depths of it right now. They're the people who are they've already had their journey through it. So we can highlight that, that healing aspect of it. And therapy helps.
Very important. You mentioned something very important, that while maybe one guest or participant in the group or in the podcast may go a little bit deeper, you know how to bring them out to the present, so that way you can continue the podcast and not allow them to go too far back in their trauma. So that's really important to mention.
Yeah. When we always do a pre-interview to get an overview of somebody's story. And then we put together kind of an outline on how to make it a nice round story. So we do walk them through and allow them to share as deep or dark or however it goes as they want and feel comfortable. And then we bring it back to, how did you get through that? And it naturally has just organically kind of gotten to that round story. We never really look at our outline, to be honest with you. We're quite unprepared most of the time, but I actually think that works out in our favor. The conversations flow naturally, and we really like that. So yeah, we go off on bunny trails and right. We have a great time with it.
We want our guests to feel comfortable and to be able to open up and share, and then leave here with a sense of like, I could be friends with those girls.
Yeah. We've had a lot of people say we're new best friends, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Yes, we are.
Yeah.
I love this. Thank you guys for sharing that. So, as a role model and Christian mentor, you have a unique opportunity to inspire, uplift those who may be experiencing hardship, trauma, and heartbreak in their lives. What message of hope and encouragement would you like to share with the listeners today? And especially for those who have been facing challenges, how to them find strength, comfort, spiritual renewal. Are there any practical steps that they can take to stay grounded and navigate difficult times with resilience? You both are amazing.
I think I would not say Christian mentor. That's kind of a big, no pressure, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I wouldn't put that label on me exactly. However, I mean, pray first.
Yep.
Absolutely. Pray first. That is huge. And don't be afraid to be open to people who want to help and love on you. I mean, it can be natural for some people, like example, Victoria,
Yeah.
not throwing you under the bus or anything.
I have a hard time with this.
Some
Asking for help.
some people don't like to ask for help, and some people are, you know, I'm in control, or I want to fix it, and I think in times like that, you just have to learn to let go a little bit and let people come to you. And I mean, granted, I understand not everybody has a great support system, but if you do, utilize it.
Yeah. Anybody who can help. I mean, even the nurses in the hospital were such a huge support system. They had a social worker there that came around, the child life advocate. Leaning on people, even if you don't have anybody immediate. Because I mean, we are speaking from a place of privilege that we have such a great, solid foundation of support
and each other.
And with each other. But that is definitely a place of privilege, because there's a lot of people out there, and a lot of people that we've spoken to on our podcast that didn't really have a good support system in the moments that they needed it the most. And they really just had to rely on God and themselves to kind of get through that. And that's okay too, if you have to. And what I would say to somebody, I want to say, oh, it gets better, and it might not. I don't know.
We're both definitely like realist when it comes to things. It's like I said, I had the negative mindset upbringing, so I try not to go there, but I'm also not like everything's gonna be fine, like just there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Like that's just not how we are naturally. So I'm like, okay, these are the facts. This is what's happening now. This is what we can control. And the rest we give it to God.
Right.
And anybody who wants to reach out and help.
And eventually, at some point along the way, or years later, at some point, you will find a silver lining. Mm-hmm. Somewhere along the way, you will see something that you can latch onto as the silver lining of your story.
Yep.
And it is definitely not going to be in the moment. It's definitely not going to be in that immediate journey, but it's going to be after the fact, most of the time.
Yeah.
And find that, search for that silver lining, because that's just what helps you the most in the aftermath.
Thank you, ladies, for such great words of encouragement. Thank you both for being here as a guest for being encourager podcast. And I thank you both, and God bless you both.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
It was a pleasure to have you both.